the ego, tries to deny its emptiness by grasping the next thought. So it's trying to deny its emptiness by grasping the next thought because it's uncomfortable with that feeling of shunyata. And that just comes from a lack of understanding, a lack of training of our awareness. Because when we're brought into this world, our pure awareness, we're told, you better get into school and you better this is how you do things. It's linear and so forth and so on. But the world is not like that, as you know. Nature is not like that. The thing then is that when you're in that habit, then the ego is constantly thrust into the future, as I was mentioning before, right? So the self, or the ego, is that which is constantly deferred. So it's constantly that which is put off. So you're constantly in this process of stretching this train of thought out and creating this sense of person. And it's just an uncomfortability with the actual emptiness, the empty, spontaneous, and free nature of the mind.
Yeah, that's something completely different from what they're used to.
Yes.
Right? Completely unfamiliar with. We are so accustomed to keep accumulating things like material possessions or your thoughts in whichever way to fulfilling your desires and cravings. So we are so used to doing that, right? So we would keep doing that regardless of the fact that that's fulfilling you or not. Only because it became your habit, you keep doing it without any reason, basically, because you don't know anything else than that way.
Yes.
Right? We were so trained, so got used to living that way, and our parents lived that way. So we never got introduced to any other way to go about, right? So that instantly when you hear someone says that you need to empty your mind, you need to, cleanse your thoughts.
You're a nutbag.
You need to simplify your life and things like that. But although the people would see some benefits of doing that, instantly, like you said, they will feel so uncomfortable and insecure, I think.
Yes.
So it's just uncomfortable. It's just something completely different. You just stop collecting things, right? So that you feel just that unfamiliar territory, that uncomfortability.
Yes. Well, insecurity is a perfect word to use because, the problem in the mind, and from our parents and everyone suffers because of this, is that the mind thinks its fundamental task, or because of how we've been trained and habituated, it thinks its fundamental task is to find and dwell in a secure home for itself. That's what it thinks.
Feels like settled.
Settled. Yeah, that's
settled.
Perfect.
Settled.
I have everything. Yes, I have everything. But then what sits in the background? A deep longing for something else, a sense of sense of adventure or something else.
Always there's something else.
Something else, yeah.
That way,
yeah. So it thinks that its fundamental task is to find this secure home for itself and to dwell in it. But what the East are doing is they're talking about this non-dwelling perspective. So essentially you're homeless in your mind. So you throw the ego out, you stop thinking in this way, in this chain of thoughts, and you become comfortable in this non-dwelling place. So you don't have a dwelling, there's no house built in your mind, you're not following the next thought after the next thought, you're just shanti, you know what I mean? You're just, I'm good, you know what I mean? I'm comfortable in emptiness. It's frightening for people because they're not comfortable in the non-dwelling aspect. They need a house in here. Everything's almost equated to the external world. I need something in here. I got to have some opinion. I got to think of.
That's right. That's some sort of fixation in your mind. You need something, right? Yeah. And that again boosts your ego.
Yes.
And that makes you feel secure.
Yes.
Because your ego feels secure.
Yes.
Yeah, I just thought that otherwise, actually, because Zhuangzi, in story of Zhuangzi, there's many good stories, but the butterfly story, I'm maybe oversimplifying here, but the moment that Zhuangzi himself was looking at butterfly, that very moment he himself became the butterfly, right? So in that analogy, what I really like is that our ego, our mind always wants fixation. Our thoughts want to be settled at somewhere, right? That gives you sense of security, gives you sense of identity, right? And it gives you sense of idea of who you think you are, right? In that sense, you feel safe. Whereas where Zhuangzi is coming from is that there's none of that.
Yeah.
Because he knows that's an illusion. The illusion of our own thinking.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
It's deluded mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? But he puts in a butterfly story that in that moment, I'm like a butterfly. I'm free like butterfly. I can fly everywhere like butterfly. In that moment. And next moment, you're something else. So it's that free and easy wandering, which is completely different in dwelling in thoughts. Yeah.
And dwelling in a belief system.
Yeah. So in that sense, the mind is incomplete in that its own nature, which is free, empty, and formless.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So in that way, you can be completely free, and only from that way, I think you can be fulfilled and have that sense of satisfaction and contentment.
And that's how you begin to witness the unsupported thought.
Yes.
Because you're comfortable, and this is where the sages are different, you're comfortable in that space. So you see the thoughts. That's interesting. But that's all that's a reaction. It's not the wandering mind. It's not, see, if you have a dwelling, that's familiar, I go with this.
Yeah. It's more temptation.
Temptation, yeah.
Whereas once you begin to notice that in that split second that you are trying to link the thoughts, right? Like, oh no, I'm not gonna go there. So you begin to be able to notice when these thoughts arise.
Yes. Essentially, the truth is that in saying all that, the mind truly does want itself, but we're in this bad habit, right? We're in this bad habit of following the thoughts and so forth. So it's actually the linkage of thoughts that eclipse this from happening, from the mind residing in its non-dwelling nature, right? And so if we don't have this complete understanding of how thoughts arise and the unsupported thought as opposed to the linkages of thoughts, and being comfortable with the mind's empty nature, then we'll never experience that, because we'll always be in this process of linking the thoughts. So basically what the mind is trying to do is it's trying to grasp itself, and in trying to grasp itself, it creates the ego. So it's trying to objectify itself, it's trying to create this dwelling, because it's in this habit of seeking, and then we create the ego, right?
It's almost in that process, in your own mind, through the chains of thoughts, in your mind, you create this being, and you, that's me.
That's me, yeah.
Like this.
Yeah. The mind, is trying to fix itself.
Yes.
So that's how it tries to fix itself. It creates the ego. But like when you put more awareness on it, and you start to unlink the thoughts, then you get comfortable with the non-dwelling nature. The problem with this process is, in having this ego, it gives this kind of security, right? Like you said before, like we feel like this and this and that. But this comes at a tragic cost, because fear is generated at the same time. And why fear is generated? Because anything that grasped can be lost. It can be lost. So this is what happens with death. See, we create this ego, right? And so we're in this dwelling place in our mind, right? And what happens at death? Death's coming, and that house is getting burnt down that you built. No matter what you think, it's gone. It's going. It's going. And so we suffer immensely, because we've grasped this sense of self that's come through this linkage of thoughts from our wandering mind and building this process of ego. And then when we are grasping that, when it's getting taken away, like anything else, we suffer fear. And this is the big detriment to this whole process. If you're in your non-dwelling nature, this is life. What comes, and this happens, like not that a sage or a master doesn't feel the pain of death. Of course they do. But their experience of that is completely different.
I find it a little bit sad, to be honest, how much people don't want to or just don't think about their own death. I think that's sad.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Because if I were to say to just any average people, they're like, oh, that's a little bit too much of a heavy topic, isn't it?
Heavy lifting, huh?
Yeah, I can understand where they're coming from, but that's something like, I don't know, blind spot or just a kind of elephant in the room kind of topic that no one wants to approach because, again, because it's so fearful, right?
Yep.
But matter of the fact, like, as much as we hear someone else dies, we ourselves gonna have to face it one day as well.
Of course, yeah.
Actually, only that way we will be able to see ourselves much more honest way and transparent, and also we might get some sort of message in a way like how to live our own life.
Yes.
Right?
And when it comes, if you follow what we've been talking about today, the fear won't arise because you're not dwelling anymore.
Yeah.
You are residing in the non-dwelling. You've got over your own uncomfortability of your own mind, and you're not associated to your thoughts. You're not associated to the sense of self you have. You're going to be just like the wind. When death comes, you'll be just like the wind, free.
So, I mean, that's such beauty to me.
Yeah, of course,
that's just the beauty of life as a human being, I think.
Well, that's the ultimate spiritual process for anyone who's into especially deep spirituality. It's about freeing yourself from any sense of karma. And it comes from the non-dwelling place, from not solidifying yourself. See, that solid house, that thing's getting burnt down, but the remnants of that, the foundation, is probably going to live on in another form. And so do you want to live on in another form, or do you want to fully merge back with the source, to use Taoist terminology? And so what you ought to do is you got to come back to Zhuangzi's zero perspective, which is this non-dwelling place.
Yes.
And when you're in the non-dwelling place, fear doesn't exist.
Yes.
Fear is what is a result of this process of dwelling in your mind, of creating something that doesn't actually exist. You're grasping something,
Yes.
you're holding on to it. And, what happens when you hold on to something for too long? You get tired and worn out.
That's right. You do get worn out.
You get worn out. And then what happens? And eventually you have to let go anyway.
Exactly.
And we need to, like you were mentioning about death before, like we always have to contemplate our own mortality because all things, not always, but I'm saying it's good to contemplate that because, all things do pass eventually, and you are a part of nature as well. Things are just coming and going in nature. It's the way it is. We don't see it a lot like that because we don't have much of an objective view. We only really see from our own subjective experience. But ants are dying right now, birds are dying right now, humans are dying. Everything is coming. New lines are being born, other lines are dying.
Yeah.
There's this whole constant process going on. And it's a beautiful thing when you understand it. But it's not a beautiful thing if you're in your dwelling mind. It's like, because then you start to think, oh, well, why me? And why did they have to die? And this and that. It's like, it's nature. There's a beautiful thing to it. Like, it's been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, very long time.
Just because you're here with your Google and this and that, and you're trying to overcome these things, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Whatever has a beginning, there's the end.
Yeah, of course,
and
yeah.
That's just
And there's a beauty to that.
fundamental truth, yes.
When you read a story, right? If the story never ended, would you keep reading? You'd be just like, chapter 1000. Okay. Just keep going, like, but there's no end in sight.
And like you said, because there is a beginning and an end, and there's a beauty in it, I think.
Of course there's a beauty in
And
it.
only that way, I think, we can see what the beauty is in individual's life.
Yes.
Or just a life in general.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the beauty can be witnessed when you are in the process of the non-dwelling
Yes.
aspect. You can see the beauty because you're not reacting to thoughts, you're not reacting to a sense of self, you're not grasping anything in your mind, you're witnessing the beauty. Can you witness the beauty? And the witnessing the beauty means that your mind is unpolluted.